Why there is no audio?
Now there is audio. Now we can hear you.
Okay,
It's working.
it's working.
Yeah, it is. Okay, we are live.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the ICANN Conversations. That's the India Co-Win Action Network. I'm Priyanka Deo from New India Junction. Before we start and before I introduce our guest, let me tell you a little bit about the ICANN network because they have been doing a fabulous job during this lockdown and this pandemic. ICANN is an initiative to help underprivileged communities that have been hit the hardest due to COVID-19 in a unique movement to combat the pandemic through online platforms that connects those who are in need of help to those that provide it. Now, Co-Win warriors work from home, they activate on-ground networks, and they also mobilize resource providers as well. So they're all over the place, and the stats are very, very impressive. In fact, every single time I do these interviews, I'm so happy to see that there are more and more Co-Win warriors all over the place. Now, so far, 91,894 lives have been positively impacted through the Co-Win network. In addition to that, there are just under 4,000 Co-Win warriors all over the place doing some great work. And they also have 2,598. So that's just under 2,600 NGO partners, which is absolutely impressive. So now let's go ahead and speaking about COVID-19 and speaking about the pandemic, we have a fabulous expert today. He is the director of Air India. He's the former managing director of Deutsche Bank India, and he is an ex-investment banker. I'd like to introduce to the show Mr. Syed Zafar Islam. Mr. Islam, welcome to the show. Namaste.
Thank you very much. Namaste, everyone.
So let's get right down to the topic because it's something that everybody wants to know a little bit more about. Now, we've been reading about the stimulus package that the finance minister has announced in 5 parts. So the topic of today's conversation is decoding the 20 lakh crore package. So I was just wondering, now in those 5 parts, there's quite a bit in every single part because I looked at the press conferences in total myself, but it was very technical, very difficult to understand if you have not done finance or if you are not familiar with economics before. So, Mr. Islam, the first question that I have for you is, can you just give a brief overview of the package and then we can possibly go and decode it as we move along? I know that's a loaded question, but I leave it to you.
It's indeed a pleasure to be here and interacting with you. And thank you for inviting me here. First, as you rightly asked the question, because it was announced in over 5 days, but you have to understand what the Honorable Prime Minister has indicated in his speech to the nation, that he wants to make India self-reliant, and he also talked about the policy reforms he would want to undertake in the announcement. Also, he was very clearly articulating that we want to become self-reliant and we will focus on supply chain. So we have to first do a back testing. What was the issue? Because the pandemic, the package was primarily to deal with the pandemic, the COVID-19 situation, and the situation which has arisen out of the COVID-19 and issues which people were dealing with is one, the life. So many lives were getting affected because of the lockdown. The business was getting affected. And more importantly, the economy overall was totally stagnant after the announcement of lockdown by the Honorable Prime Minister. And nobody knew what exactly we are dealing with because the pandemic is something which is still unknown. And I would say that, but in March, when we actually went for the lockdown, that time we were dealing with only unknowns. Today, at least we have some visibility of COVID-19, how it will spread, who it actually impacts, who are the likely target for COVID-19. At least we have some visibility, some reports are there. We are not only dealing with we're dealing with unknowns at what we had in March 2020. So the government first used the policy to address the concern, which was primary concern of the government, which is like how to deal with the unknowns and the worst situation which is likely to occur because of the COVID-19. And what are the worst situation? you can have starvation, you can have defaults because there is no economic activity. So all those issues, if you see the policy measures which have been taken, is only getting addressed. All these issues are getting addressed. First, the immediately after the lockdown, what the Honorable Prime Minister did, he announced the package. Because if you just categorize in India that the package was primarily meant for 20% of the bottom population of the country, which is a poor and marginalized section of the society. And the second was the financial sectors, and third was, of course, industry and MSME. So the government has first focus on the worst, how to hedge the worst, and that is what the primary of the concern of the government. That's why they announced the package of 1.7 lakh crore, because that will deal with the issues of the 20% of the bottom population. Secondly, there was uncertainties and people will default, people will don't know all the deadlines they had, so they also extended the deadlines. Initially, the RBI came up with so many flexibility, and they had provided to borrowers, because everyone had some loan to repay, and most of the industries were struggling how to repay the loan. So the moratorium was announced first for 3 months, and then of course they realized that since the lockdown has been extended, the moratorium has to be extended. Basically,
so let's go specifically towards, because I know you mentioned that was an important chunk that I think people want to know a little bit more about. Now, we still see migrant workers, they come on the news, trying to travel thousands of miles all the way home. Now, a very important part of the package, actually, I believe it was, I don't want to coin, but I think it was part two, where part two specifically of what the finance minister announced focused specifically on migrant workers, street vendors, self-employed people, as you mentioned, so small-time MSMEs, and as well as small farmers. So can we talk a little bit about exactly what is being done? Because I think that there's a lot of, I don't want to say fake news, but I think that there's a lot of misinformation going around that the government is essentially doing nothing for migrant workers, which is not true. So what does the package specifically do for migrant workers and farmers? Because there are specific sections that deal with them.
see, you have to understand that India has 1.3 billion population, and it's not a small population to deal with. Many other countries will have a different problem. During COVID-19, India will have a different set of problems. One of the problems which we had encountered, the government has encountered, is the migrant labor, because after the lockdown was announced, very clearly the Honorable Prime Minister had asked the migrant labor to stay put where they are. And of course, the arrangements were made, the package was announced to ensure that every single soul needs to be fed, and something which was organized by the government and the NGOs and the other agencies and state representatives all put together. They had ensured that every single soul is reached and they are being fed. So that was the primary concern of the governments. Now, after the lockdown was extended, obviously they wanted to go back to their hometown, because these migrant labor are, if you just add the number from different states, they are coming to different states. It's like around 15 crore, and 15 crore is not a small number which you can actually ferry them in one day. So the government had come up with various schemes. One, of course, the ferry these migrant laborers based on priority. There are people who have also, they have been asked to provide what are the urgency for them to visit, and whichever the state government felt that they are the people who need to first and they need to be prioritized, they have been given priority. But these are the issues which to deal with the migrant labor. But the other packages which have been announced for them is like the direct benefit transfer. The government has transferred 52,000 crore in their specific account through JAM treaty, which was Jandan Aadhaar, using the JAM treaty, and they transferred around 52,000 crore. And when it comes to farmers, in their account, we have transferred around 16,000 to 18,000 crore. But also, government has also given free ration for next 2 months to all the migrant laborers. Even wherever they are, they can take ration from the distribution center, and that is the benefit which they have been being provided. Plus, their travel cost was 85% was absorbed by the central government, only 15% was absorbed by the state government. Besides that, many other packages, including the 40,000 crore allocation, over and above what has been already allocated in the budget, was clearly allocated for to deal with the migrant labor, because once they go to their hometown, they will need jobs. That money can be used to engage them and provide them employment as well. So a lot of things have been done for the farmer. A lot of things have been done for the migrant labor. But of course, there are people who will always keep complaining about it. But they also have to understand that we have almost 15 crore migrant labor, and there is no other system in the country which can ferry them in a week's time or 10 days time. It has to be planned, and that's why the government on the Ministry of Home Affairs and the respective states had planned in a manner that they can be ferried in intervals and without having any problem.
Now, let's talk a little bit about the middle class. RBI, as you were mentioning a little bit before, I think I cut you off right in the middle because I wanted to talk about migrant laborers and farmers first. But RBI has done, in fact, a lot of work for the working middle class, especially for MSMEs, especially for families through CLSS. So can you explain a little bit, perhaps to some of those that don't understand what liquidity means, or to some of those that don't understand what flow means inside the economy? If you're flowing money into it, if you're providing a CLSS scheme for housing, for example. So now middle class families can afford housing. Loan forgiveness. Can you explain what that means, how it will impact the middle class? And is this sustainable for long term, even post-COVID?
See, the government has, of course, given various relief to middle class. First, of course, the EMIs. All the people who had taken loan from banks and NBFCs, they have been given relief because the moratorium was given to them so that they need not pay immediately. Secondly, if you see the MSME sector, that space actually employs so many middle class people, and they were struggling because the economic activity was shut down and there was no liquidity to ensure that these people's interests are safeguarded by these MSMEs. So what the government of India has done to provide to 45 lakh MSME. There are many MSME, but if you just take the 45 number, which will actually represent almost 80 to 85% of the MSME world. So government has done two things. First, they've given 3 lakh crore loan, which is totally been guaranteed by the government of India, because if there is no economic activity, there is no cash flows, then obviously bank will not lend to them. And that is the feeling which the government had. And that's why they guaranteed the entire loan so that they have liquidity. And once they have liquidity, they will start the economic activity. And once they start the economic activity, they will retain the employees who are working on them. So that was the first objective. These 43 lakh targeted support by the government through trade protection, protected loan to MSME actually safeguarded the interests of the middle class and lower middle class, because these people are employed by MSME. Also, there were some MSME who actually were, where we felt, or the government felt, that they will not be able to survive without the support of equity or subordinated loan. So the government of India also allocated 50,000 crore for as equity infusion for these MSMEs, and this is guaranteed 20% by the government of India. And also there is a 35,000 crore of additional liquidity which is provided by the government to all the MSME in the form of subordinated loan. So if the three P's which is important, one is the senior loan which is being guaranteed, which is the 3 lakh crore. Then if some company which needed not the equity, they didn't want to dilute, but they needed some subordinated loan, so they can take more loan from the bank. So government has also facilitated that. And the company which actually needs some equity support, that also government of India has come up with a scheme which they can provide to all kind of support, because they are the backbone. They employ large section of the society, and they needed to be on their feet. And that's why the government of India had provided all kind of support And what is more important, people are often talking about the monetary support or a fiscal stimulus, but the government of India has made a mixture of both in monetary stimulus as well as fiscal stimulus wherever it was needed. Like for instance, I said that allocation for Manrega 40,000 crore or 1,76,000 crore for the poor and marginalized. The government has made the fiscal stimulus, but wherever the liquidity is required, the monetary stimulus, the money supply was required. There, the government have ensured that these companies, what they require is liquidity, and that is being provided to them so that they can start functioning once again once the lockdown is over.
Now, if you're pumping so much money in now, and of course, a lot of economies around the world, across the world, are doing this. President Trump, I think, allocated $2 trillion towards COVID. Where India has also given a huge sum right now through this Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan package. These are huge sums of money to help the economy, which is obviously taking a hit. Economies are taking a hit all across the world. Is India doing a good job as compared to other countries economically in fighting the COVID pandemic?
Very good question. And I must compliment you for asking this question because there is a differentiating factor in our approach and with the rest of the world. Most of the world, the developed economies and the Western world, they have upfront announced a package. While the government of India's approach is very different compared to the rest of the world. What is, as I said, that there's a barbell strategy in economics, where what exactly you do, you first hedge the worst. So what government of India has done is basically followed the barbell strategy. Initially, all the announcements they have made basically to hedge the worst situation, like I said, the starvation, all the liquidity issue, all the other the deadlines. They have the government of India has come up with a policy measure which addresses those concerns. Now, the government of India still has a lot of headroom available to announce more and more measures to address the or stimulate the economy. Unlike the other countries which you are talking about, whether be it UK, be it US, or be it Sweden, or many other countries, they all have a different strategy because they have announced a large package, and they are just because they don't know how to deal with that. But the Prime Minister has taken a very different view. He wants to understand because everyone, as I said in the beginning, that it was we were dealing with the unknown. Today we know exactly what is pandemic is all about and how much it can damage, how to contain it. I think we have much more visibility than what we had in March. So slowly we are announcing package. So in order of priority, we are announcing package rather than at one go we would have announced everything. So I think there when you were talking about middle class, I'm sure even for the industry, for the small businesses like restaurant, like tourism sector, like hospitality sector, services sector, that needs a lot of support from the government. But government, people are talking that government has done nothing for them purely because government has done nothing purely because they know they have not done for every sectors. They have only announced only for few sectors, like for instance, coals and mines, and of course agriculture. But there is no sectoral reform they have announced so far, and what are the concern of the sector they have announced. So I'm sure that once the government of India going forward, once the lockdown is lifted, the economic activities will begin. Government of India will be in a position to announce much more measures, and that will be directed, targeted, and it will have much more benefit than announcing today. Because even if the business is shut, if you announce something, it will not benefit. So the approach of the government of India is very different, and I'm sure that over a long run, you will see the benefit of this approach will have a much steeper advantage to the economy than the approach which other countries have, especially the Western world. And you know that how UK is already struggling after having such a large package.
Correct. Now let's go a little more specifically into what's been done in banking. Your background is banking, but you had just made one mention of it in your previous response. So I just wanted to perhaps elaborate on it because this was kind of unclear to a lot of people that I had spoken to. Now, in terms of banking, insolvency proceedings basically have been suspended, right? Because of the pandemic. in addition to that, it's been increased to 1 crore. Previously, it was at 1 lakh. Now, a lot of people don't even know what that means. So
So
first, sir, can you explain what it means?
I,
And secondly, is it really going to work? Is it practical?
no, see, one of the concern of the MSME and the businesses, that what are the concern they had? They had initial concern that they will not be able to, because there's no cash flows. Business has stopped. There's no cash coming to the business, so they will not be able to service the outstanding debt. So Government of India has first, or the RBI has first provided the extension, first a moratorium for 3 months and then extended for another 3 months. Then if there is a default, and I know that there may be some businesses which will go through difficult times, even if the moratorium has been given, still they will struggle. So to address that, earlier the issue, the MSME, even if they default for 1 lakh, the insolvency code would have triggered. So the bank would have taken over that company and the management, and they would have sold this company to realize their investment or the loan. So that number has, or that amount has been increased to 1 crore, and also the IBC code should not trigger for another 6 months. That is something which has been suspended for another 6 months, to ensure that there is no default, there is no NPAs, and these companies will have much more flexibility and support from the government to ensure that they stand on their own feet and kickstart when the economy starts. They also will be able to piggyback, even if they are not in a good shape, but at least with this kind of support, they'll be able to piggyback with other companies and with all the announcement which is being made by the Government of India. Also in banking sector, that one of the concern which all the industry people were expressing, that bank is not lending money, and rightly so, because bank had a lot of apprehension in lending to companies which is not as strong as they would want them to be, and where there is no predictability of cash flow. So those companies were not getting support from the banking sector. So what Government of India has done, two things. As I said, first, given all the support and in terms of a credit protection or the guarantee. Also, Government of India has also given comfort to and also change the policy, earlier policy, to ensure that if these banks lend to these companies based on the credit assessment they have, but even if it goes wrong, that they will not be liable, or they will not be held responsible, unlike in the past where there was something which was actually bothering bankers, and then the finance minister had made those changes to ensure that their concerns are addressed. While what RBI has done, that RBI has taken many measures to infuse liquidity in the banking sector. Like, for instance, cash reserve ratio that has been cut. Interest rate has also been reduced substantially. And also they have given TLTRO 1 and TLTRO 2. The two announcement they have been made by the Reserve Bank to infuse liquidity in the banking sector. And in turn, bank have so 1 lakh crore under TLTRO 1 and 50,000 crore under TLTRO 2, basically to address the needs of the NBFCs, large corporate, medium corporate, and also even they have earmarked for smaller NBFCs and smaller MFIs. So basically, the financial sector, whoever needed money and needed support and liquidity, the government through RBI has ensured that these measures are taken and the liquidity being provided to all the market participants in the financial market, to ensure that they do not run dry, and they have sufficient liquidity to take care of their businesses, and whatever the obligation they have, they must meet the obligation through this liquidity.
There is one question from the audience which actually feeds into my questions. I'm just going to combine them into a super question for you. Now, as you know, part of the, even the fourth part of the lockdown that we are undergoing right now, they have basically, in the national rules, in the national provisions provided by the MHA, metros are closed. The aviation industry is just about opening up, but very limited, I would say. That was from, I believe, today, May 25th. Now, will this sort of, how does the government, this question is from Rohan. So Rohan, thank you so much for watching and asking this question. But his question was basically, how does the government plan to fill in these gaps? And will it result in price hikes in the future, especially post-COVID, when the airports open up, when the metros open up, public transportation opens up?
No, the government is extremely sincere and sensitive about people's expectation. So I must assure Rohan, as well as all the people who will be watching this or who are watching this program, that even now, when the COVID is and the lockdown is on and the flight has resumed from today, the price point has been very clearly defined, and it cannot exceed 18,000 rupees. So going forward, it's a demand and supply which always was in the system. It's not like artificially somebody can increase the price. And I'm on the board of Air India. I know exactly how dynamic the price mechanism is, and every now and then one has to change clearly based on the demand. So if the demand is there, then obviously prices go up. But there's always a ceiling which we ensure that that ceiling is there. And Government of India through Ministry of Civil Aviation will always monitors that the consumer interest is never compromised and their interest is safeguarded. So I must assure you that even after COVID-19, that will be a very different world. I must tell you, and because there are many companies, but like Air India, like there are other private companies, they are going through difficult times, and I don't know how things will pan out post COVID, but as far as the price point is concerned, the Government of India through Ministry of Civil Aviation always monitor and ensure that a common man on the street and common flyer should not be robbed, and their interests should never be compromised, and that will continue to be the policy of the government.
Now, the PM has, I think he wrote a letter on LinkedIn a little while ago, but basically he has consistently, as well as the Government of India, multiple people, multiple national figures, multiple ministries, especially in education, I would say. There is a lot of focus now on the digital economy. So is this going to be the new normal? They're calling it the new normal. Perhaps can you elaborate on what you feel the new normal will be? Are we going to be dependent on a digital economy from now forward?
See, when the demonetization was done by the Honorable Prime Minister, one of the objectives, there were many objectives, but one of the objectives was to push for a digital economy. And the pandemic has actually created a situation where one will be forced to adopt these new norms, and they'll be forced to deal on through system instead of physically visiting banks or physically going to shop. So I think there'll be push for a digital economy, and nobody knows how the new world order will be. But first, one thing is very clear and is absolutely apparent here, that there will be push for digital economy, and the Government of India will definitely also facilitate a lot of things, and which has also been indicated by the concerned ministry, that the government's focus, the Prime Minister focus is clearly to give a big push for digital economy, and that is going to be the norm going forward post COVID-19.
Now, another thing that the Prime Minister has stated, especially from what has been read in media, is the importance that is, and this was even before COVID, I would say, the importance placed on diversifying exports and diversifying imports coming in as well. Now, I think the entire world has taken a hit with COVID. So multiple countries, over 100 countries have been affected by COVID right now and counting. But basically, the global economy has also taken a hit. Now, how do we diversify our exports? How do we diversify our imports? Is this going to be part of the, a core focus of the economic plan going forward for India?
So if you really do a back testing, just analyze the last two budgets, the direction was absolutely clear that we definitely want India to be export-led economy and not consumption-led economy. But of course, consumption comes as a buffer, but the focus was clearly shifted not only the consumption, but also on exports. And that's why the tax corporate tax rate had been slashed earlier to attract the foreign companies to set up their shop here and export out of manufacture here and export out of India instead of having a shop manufacturing base somewhere else and export the rest of the world. So we are moving in that direction, and of course, this has given an additional opportunity. This adversity is turning out to be opportunity for the country because we have a demographic dividend. We have a young workforce. We have a skill set available. We have people who have the English-speaking people in the country. We have a lot of advantages compared to many other competition. So, and more important that the 2-3 laws which needed to be amended, and which is the government of India is doing that is the labor laws, the land law. I think that already the work has been initiated by the government. So I think, and then secondly, the SEZ policy. Now there maybe the new terminology may be used that the instead of SEZ something else, national investment zone or something in IZ or something like, where you will have all the approvals in place. And the government of India is clearly targeting global companies to set up shops here, have a manufacturing base here. That will that will benefit two ways. One, it will have huge FDI, foreign direct investment coming in the country. Secondly, it will have huge employment opportunity for our people in the country. And third, you will have a huge export number, and all this will benefit the economy, and the current account deficit will also improve. And these advantage will be there. So government of India has focused very clearly to focus on exports, and that's why a lot of measures they have taken. A lot of measures also they have indicated. The Honorable Finance Minister and the Prime Minister both have indicated that they will be undertaking some more reform measures to ensure that these investments do come, and we become a more export-oriented economy rather than only consumption-led economy, like we have a competition in China. And China, many companies are thinking of moving from China to another location, and some of them have relocated to other countries in India also. Like for instance, I'll give you one example. GE Medical is a company which actually lock, stock, barrel moved from China to India, and today the manufacturing base is in near Pune, and out of India they are exporting to manufacturing here, but exporting to more than 100 countries. So similar model we need to follow. The template is ready. The approval process is on. All the expectation of the global investors are being addressed, and I'm sure that a lot of investment will take place, and a lot of job creation will also happen, and also the export, as you rightly said, the exports will go up, and also once you become a better supply, having a better supply chain, then instead of importing from outside, you will have the product available in the country, so you need not import, rather than use the what is being manufactured in the country. So that is again a focus of the government. So going forward, export will be a big focus and area for the government, and all the policy measures will be taken to ensure that there is a big reforms in this space, and we are able to attract global investor in our country.
Now, in addition to that, there have been, you just mentioned the word reforms. So there have been a lot of agricultural reforms that have also taken place under this package. There have been, as you said before correctly, very important labor reforms that have also taken place under this package that are now being implemented right away. Now, not only will this attract more FDI, will this be sort of a boon for the domestic economy? And more importantly, since we have a lot of young viewers today, as you said, I think our demographic dividend is a lot of young people. Now, especially part of this package, in fact, deals with education, where the top 100 universities now are giving online classes, and they're all institutions, educational institutions, have been asked and encouraged to focus on digital so students can keep studying. What do you see, sir, as the job market for young people coming out of this pandemic situation? Can they contribute in any way, especially with these reforms taking place in agriculture, in labor? It's not the case anymore that everyone just goes in for engineering and medicine, even though those continue to be super important.
No, as you open up the economy, as you uh, get global investor in the country, you obviously have a lot of other opportunities than only becoming a doctor and engineer. So the as you rightly mentioned that historically reforms in agriculture sector was never undertaken by the government, and they always had this hesitation to take any reform measures in agriculture sector. But this time, the government of India has taken a descent to reform the agriculture sector, and especially focusing on the backward integration and forward integration, and creating a lot of opportunities for the farmers. So I'm sure that with the reform measure which has been taken in agriculture sector will give a lot of opportunity in agriculture space for young generation as well. But away from that, as I said earlier, that the job creation will happen only when there is an investment, when there is a demand, and unless there is a demand, unless there is investment, you will only be able to retain the current jobs. So the focus of the government is to ensure that the job which is there in the system already before COVID, that should remain, and that's why we have given all those support to the existing MSME or the industry. But going forward, of course, the policy measures will ensure that we are able to create both white collar job and blue collar job, and lot of new businesses will come to India, as if the government is considering changing the Section 9 of the Income Tax Act, which will ensure that a lot of startup companies will come to India in financial sectors, which today they are not able to come because of their minimum investment is required is 100 crore. So those things are being considered, and the young generation, English-speaking people, those who understand, for those who are able to interact and understand the simple dynamics, will be able to be having job opportunities in the country if we are able to attract those investments. Because manufacturing is one, but there's also focus on services sector, and I'm sure that with the focus the government of India has, young generation need not worry. Only thing they should focus on to improve their skill set, because where India is lacking currently, that in globally, if you just compare with other nations, like for instance China, or for instance Germany, the skill set or the skilled people in the country is like in 90% or 85%, or even in 95%, like Germany, 96% people are skilled. In India, it used to be very low, even in single digit. Even today, it's a single digit or closer to double digit, but that is the initiative which the government of India has taken to push for skill development. And as a result, from 1%, 2%, now in last 6 years, we have gone up to closer to double digit percentage of people who are skilled. And I'm sure that the more they will focus on skill development, the more they will have the employment, and being a young population, I'm sure that they will be able to adapt to new requirement, and when the investment will come, and I'm sure that they will have a lot more opportunities than they ever had in the past.
Great. That's very promising to hear. And now let's talk a little bit about skill development, because that's super important. Now, as you said before, for Manrega, you correctly mentioned that 40,000 crore rupees have been allocated. Now, this is in addition to, I believe it was a little over, I believe it was 61,000 crore rupees that have been allocated towards these migrant workers before. Now, this is to ensure that when they go back home, which is what they're doing, they will have employment over there. So can you, sir, tell us what you know about this scheme? Because this is something that even I don't know too much about. What type of employment opportunities exist over there? And when they come back, what types of things are migrant workers going to be looking forward to? Or is the answer perhaps skill development, that they should focus a little bit more on skill development before returning?
See, historically, before 2014, the approach under Manrega to give dole to people, basically not to empower them, just give them some financial support. But that, even though we still call it Manrega, but I call it modified Manrega, purely because there is a shift in thinking of the government, this government. And what this government is doing, basically, instead of giving goal as like as entitlement, what we are giving is creating physical infrastructure in rural sector, rural area, where we are building roads, we are building highways, we are building a lot of things. So basically, physical infrastructure we are creating, and there we are giving job to all this rural population. So we are empowering them, because this money is used efficiently, because we are creating a physical infrastructure. We are not only giving as a that somebody is entitled to get money, but you work and you contribute and you create infrastructure, and as a result we are able to employ that. That's why historically the allocation for Manreka used to be very small, but this government has made large allocation. Even 61,000 crore allocation was the historically, if you see, the largest ever allocation made by the government. But this is a special situation where the 40,000 crore was additionally allocated for under Manreka. But primarily the focus is the shift in this government's focus to empower people by giving them job, and a job to create physical infrastructure, be it road, be it any other physical infrastructure, and that is why this has become a very popular scheme in the rural sector, and the government has India is regularly increasing the allocation to ensure that more and more rural population are the beneficiary of this scheme, and they are getting employment under this scheme.
Now let's talk a little bit about airspace management, and I say this because, of course, you are on the board of Air India. That's what you had mentioned. So now this is really interesting and something that perhaps is not spoken about. But since airports and air travel is opening today, for airspace management, what has been done in this package is that airports would be auctioned, right? I believe it was a total of 6 airports would be auctioned, under the PPP model. Investments were also going to be made to more airports. Now, is this just sort of a starting point? Are they going to make more investments as we go along in the future?
No.
And why is this important?
No, see, privatization of airports are happening for the last several years. I mean, like initially it was only Mumbai Airport, MIL, Mumbai International Airport Limited, and then we had in Delhi. These two airports were privatized, and you see the infrastructure we have in both Mumbai and Delhi is a world-class infrastructure because of the public-private participation. On a similar model, many other airports have been privatized, like, for instance, Hyderabad or Bangalore. And those airports have been auctioned to private players who want to develop those airports, create a world-class infrastructure. And then, of course, they collect revenue for next, they have a concession agreement with the government for next 20, 30 years based on the agreement they have with the government. So they have announced additional 6 airports, which are now being announced, where which will be auctioned basically for development, and private players will participate. They will have to invest. They will have to pay upfront some amount to the government, so that's a revenue. And of course, they will once they are able to develop this airport to another quality infrastructure, then they will collect revenues on this airport for next several years. But it's nothing to do with the airspace which you were talking about. Airspace is also a management that is where there are some restricted airspace where the commercial flight cannot fly from that zone. So the government of India is actually indicated that they will look into it and ensure that much more airspace is available for commercial flights. And if it does happen, then we will have less time, flying time, and as a result, we will save both in terms of fuel cost. Saving in fuel cost will definitely translate into better pricing for the for the consumer. So it will benefit consumer, it will save time, and the efficient management of aerospace will only benefit the countrymen. So that's another decision which has been taken, which is, of course, is a very this kind of decision is sometimes somebody wouldn't have thought of that this would come, or nobody had ever demanded. But you have to give credit to the vision of the Honorable Prime Minister that they always safeguard the interest of the people of this country and the national interest, and that's why sometimes he come up with some measures which facilitate direct benefit to the people of this country.
Now, there have been a lot of investments through this package being done in very specific industries. Number one, coal. Number two, mining. Number three, defense. Right? There's been a lot of focus, very specific focus, I would say, in terms of allocating investment towards these three sectors. Are these three sectors, are we going to see them open up? Are we going to see that a lot of skill building will be, I mean, should students, should young people focus on building their skills towards these sectors, becoming experts in these sectors? What are we going to see in the future in terms of it within this country, in terms of coal, mining, defense?
See, defense production, historically, if you just see, we were only importing from from different countries. We were dependent on on other countries purely because even when we're buying, as for instance, any machine, then they never used to part with the technology, and we have to even depend for the smaller parts if it's tomorrow we need, or even for like if we bought a gun, a machine gun. For instance, I'm just taking an example, giving an example. Then if tomorrow if you need some parts of that machine gun which you needed to replace, then you have to be dependent on the country which has given you this machine gun. So what the government of India has changed since 2014, that and subsequent changes in measures which has been taken a few days ago, that first what they have done that they want the defense manufacturing should be given priority in the country. Then if we are buying anything from the other country, then that has to come along with the technology and know-how. So if the know-how is with the country, then we can develop on our own over a period of time, and the parts should be manufactured in the country. These are the changes which has been made by the government in the defense procurement policy initially. Today, what the landmark decision which has been taken by the government to attract more investment in the country, so they have given 74% under automatic route approval for under automatic route that FDI can come in the defense sector, which is a very good decision, and everybody is welcoming, because if you will find a lot of investment taking place in the country in this space, and that is what we wanted. That is what the intention of the government, that the defense equipment should be manufactured here and we need not be dependent on other countries from where we are importing. So that is a clear change, and I'm sure that a lot of opportunities, these kind of measures will only where the investments are coming, where the investments are taking place. You clearly say that you assume that you will create, those investment will create both white collar job and blue collar job.
What about sectors that since we're talking about different industries in India, what about sectors that traditionally most people do not even consider, such as the energy sector, atomic energy sector, nuclear sector, space? Now focus has been given to that as well in this package. Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
See, as you rightly said, that these sectors were never in our radar. And we have also never focused on these sectors. But of course, as I said earlier, that the Prime Minister understands the need for opening up of this sector as well. And that's why these reforms are being undertaken. I'm sure that this is the first of such reforms. The industry or the opportunities, what will evolve over a period of time will be, we will be able to see. But right now, I don't know exactly how much opportunity this atomic sector, what you asked, will eventually translate into job opportunities or any other benefits. I'm sure. I'm sorry, but I have not gone through the details of this sector because, as you rightly said, these are new sectors, and it is just opening up. Maybe over a period of time we will have much more clarity. But this will certainly there is a thought has gone behind it, and the private participation. What is being encouraged by the government that except, and that is something which I think is the primary driver, that except the strategic industry or sector, government of India has decided to bring investment from private sectors and encourage private sectors to participate in those sectors. Unlike in the past, where everything was only meant for the public sector, but they are opening up, and as a result, I think they have opened up in those spaces as well. Purely because the government of India is focused, besides the strategic space or sector, the private participation should be there and should be encouraged, and that is a very landmark decision because most of the liberalization which has happened in the 1991, at least the public sector was insulated from there. Not big strategic sale was happening in public sector, barring one here and there. And now this kind of decision will definitely bring a lot of revenues for the government also, because divestment will happen in private sector and private investment will also come in this space that will create a lot of new opportunities, competition, and eventually benefit the economy and the country and the people.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. I think by privatizing it, which is what the package does, uh, technology centers have also incubation centers are being set up that sort of links nuclear technology to just normal technology. So a lot of opportunity, I would say, for entrepreneurship, for skills in these sectors to develop in the future, especially for our young people. Now we have a couple of questions from the audience. So they may seem a little out of order, but they are important. And one question I really liked is the impact on real estate. It's something that I don't think media has covered very well. Now, real estate is something that also supports a lot of industry as well. So, what can we see? How does this package help real estate and the real estate industry?
See, real estate as such, as I said, that sectoral announcements have not been made. But all these measures which has been taken uh, by the government in terms of the policy measures, which will help, it's a generic type, and it will help all the industries. Like, for instance, moratorium, like, for instance, IBC. Those things will help all the industries because we want these companies to sustain, and the employment what they have given, that should continue. But there are the announcements which are still pending, and some flexibility which the real estate sectors were expecting, that the new RERA norms, where they have certain deadlines, certain restriction where they had. I think that flexibility all the real estate participant or the industry was looking for, which has been provided in this announcement. But anything specific for the real sector, I'm sure that that is something which the industry is expecting, and I'm sure that something when the government will announce reforms or specific measures for the sectors, then I'm sure something will come for the real estate sector as well. But all the generic announcement which has been made is also providing a lot of benefit to the real estate sector.
Yeah. And not just the real estate sector, right? I think the announcements made are providing support to all the sectors across. Yeah.
Industry with two objectives, that they should have liquidity, they should they start economic activities, and they should continue to employ those people who are working with them. But of course, there some more measures are likely to get announced, where the sector specific, because the Prime Minister has reviewed every single sector, and the announcement only has been made for 2-3 sectors, not all the sectors. So I'm sure that some sectors will definitely, some announcement for few sectors are still to be made, I expect that because real estate sector also gives a lot of immediate employment. If you really want to give, then real estate sector should be the one who should be the government should be focusing. Infrastructure sector government has not made any announcement. So I'm sure that those announcements are still due and will come over a period of time once the lockdown is lifted and the environment is subdued enough to make such announcement and economic activities has begun. Then those announcements will definitely will be made by the government.
Great. And last question, tourism. We haven't spoken about that at all, but tourism accounts for just under 10%, I would say, of India's GDP. So how do you think that the scenario will be, especially post-COVID, for the tourism industry in India? Will it take a hit or will more people want to come?
See, tourism, hospitality, in these two sectors also not only a big driver for GDP, but also they employ a huge number of people. And the government of India has not made any announcement for this space, primarily because even if they had made any announcement today, it would have not done any good to these companies. Purely because today, if you give some soaps or make some announcement, nobody is going to travel from here to any other country or from one place to another place because we are living in a different time and restrictions. So once those restrictions are over, once that flexibility is there, once these people are back to normal and start their activities, that time whatever appropriate measures needs to be taken to support and boost this industry will be definitely be considered by the government, which has also been indicated by various government officials and including the finance minister that some more measures are still to come. And these two sectors are definitely are the focus area of the government besides real estate sector and infrastructure, because they also provide a lot of job opportunities. They have a multiplier effect on the economy, on GDP, and also they attract a lot of investment. Global investors also put a lot of investment in this space where they want that you develop something real estate and they will buy. So instead of taking a credit, they're taking a construction risk. They prefer to buy asset which has already been built, and they are happy to pay more premium, but they are willing to invest in the country. So last few years we have seen that the physical assets have been bought by global investors, and because they do not want to take the construction risk, and this is likely to happen going forward as well. So a lot of focus will be of the government to attract global investor and provide scopes to domestic real estate companies or infrastructure companies and hospitality sector or tourism sector to ensure that both we have employment as well as investment from global investors.
Well, great. Thank you for that. And thank you for this entire discussion. I know I threw a lot of loaded questions at you, one after the other, but thank you so much for giving us your time and answering these questions, basically decoding the package, because a lot of people have these questions. And of course, they're not answered by mainstream media. So I do want to thank you for that.
I just want to summarize one thing.
Please.
And I think this will help the viewer or those who are watching this program, that the government of India has only addressed the supply side. And those measures will address the supply side, while the demand side, more measures are to be taken, and more stimulus package, if whatever within the constraint of the government may get announced, and you will see a push for demand as well. So supply side has fully been addressed, and everyone acknowledges in the country that all the measures will address the concern of every single entity in the supply side, that these are getting addressed. On demand side, I'm sure that more measures are to be taken, and some measures, including the income tax, related to income tax, I think there are indication. I don't know when corporate tax rates has already been cut. The personal income tax also can be rationalized. Some indication is already there. So those will happen over a period of time. So while this package has been announced, but there are more to come, and we must wait for that to see post-COVID, a new world order, India, how India is turning the adversity into opportunity, and all the beneficiaries will be the future generation of this country.
So more exciting things to come, basically. So we'll see what the new normal is. And I'm sure all good things, as you said before, because this stimulus package was very holistic, as you said, covered a lot, came in 5 parts. So thank you so much for taking your time, as I said before, for addressing a lot of our questions that we had. A lot of questions that the people had about, especially the more minute details of the package that perhaps have not been so well elaborated or so clear. I want to thank you for that. That was Mr. Syed Islam, who obviously was ex-investment banker. That's very clear from this discussion, as well as the former managing director, Deutsche Bank, and director of Air India. So, Mr. Islam, thank you so much for your time. And thank you to ICANN for this wonderful conversation. With that being said, this is... Yep. Go ahead. I'd let you have your last words.
I said thank you very much for being invited me here.
Thank you. With that being said, that concludes our ICANN conversation for today. This is Priyanka Deo on behalf of New India Junction and ICANN signing off.
मुश्किल है आन पड़ी ये कैसी कठिन घड़ी सहमी सहमी जिंदगी बिखरी हुई बंदगी मानवता है पुकार रही दिखाएं हम दरिया दिली I can you can we can India can I can you can we can India can हम सब मिल जाएं तो मिलकर हाथ बटाएं तो टल जाएगी ये घड़ी झूमेगी फिर से खुशी आशा टूटे नहीं हौसला रूठे नहीं साथ ये छूटे नहीं मंजिल दूर नहीं मानवता है पुकार रही दिखाएं हम दरिया दिली आई